So let's go ahead and take a moment for prayer. And wherever you are and whatever you're doing, just take a minute to become really present and take a breath in. And I like to just go to my heart space, because when I go to my heart space, I instantly look within to that God, that knowingness, that spirit within me, and pray from that space. As we just sense the spirit in us. Father, Mother, God, great spirit of this universe, thank you for this time together today. Thank you for sharing and knowing and growing through the experience of holy moments. As we open ourselves to the realization that we are never separated from God, and we allow God to come through us. Whatever that experience is, we just allow flow within our bodies, our minds, our hearts, our souls, and we open up to understanding and sharing from one another and learning more about holy moments so that we can create more in our own lives and be a part of flow more and realize oneness more and how we play a part in it, and that we are of it and it comes through us. As we see this time together moving forward with ease and grace and the spirit of opening, allowing, learning, and understanding more. Thank you, God. Amen. All right. So I'm excited to hear any holy moments that you either created or you were experiencing this week. Maybe it was something that you were on the receiving end or you were just a part of. I hope there was one that you were able to create. Is there someone who can start us off with sharing a holy moment experience this week? George, great, unmute and go ahead.
Yeah, I was at the dentist with Lindsay, and the receptionist there is very, very positive. And so at one point when she went over to make a new pot of coffee, I asked her, what kind of upbringing did you have? I said, it must have been great. She said, yes, it was. And I said, we're doing this book study, and it's on holy moments. So I'm giving her a book so that she can, she's already doing it, but if she can pass it out, pay it forward.
That's wonderful.
Great thing. Great to see.
Great. Yes. Thank you for sharing. That's awesome. Thank you, George. Anyone else want to share a holy moment that you created or experienced this week? Dot.
I get coupons from Kroger's every once in a while, and there was a coupon for a free 24-pack of water from Kroger's, and so I got the package of water and gave it to my neighbors who are raising their 2 granddaughters.
Wow. Thanks. Thanks for sharing. That's nice. Felt good too, I bet. Anyone else? A holy moment that you experienced or that you created? Leslie, go ahead and unmute and share with us.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Last Wednesday I was at at the Y for Silver Sneakers, and we were finished, but we were kind of sitting around in the lobby talking and everything, which we do every Wednesday. And I got a phone call through my my Ring doorbell, and well, I did, yeah. And so I looked at it and I thought, my neighbor was at my front door ringing my doorbell and knocking on the door, and I thought, well, I wonder what she wants, you know. So I thought, well, I'll talk to her when I get back from the Y. And then something told me, you need to go now. So so I went ahead and said, you know, I'll see you guys next week. And I got here and I looked at the video again on my phone, and I noticed that she sat down on the step right in front of my door. Then she got up and started knocking on the door and ringing the doorbell. And I thought, something's wrong. So I went next door and I knocked on her door, rang the doorbell several times. And then I was starting to get a little anxious, and I thought, when is this happening? So she comes to the door and she said, oh, I'm so glad you're here. And she sat down on the stairway that goes upstairs and kind of collapsed out. She didn't stop breathing or anything like that, but she fell forward on the steps and laid her head down. And I said, what's wrong? And she said, I can't breathe very well. And she said, I have pain in my chest. And I said, oh my God. So I said, okay. She said, I was going to call somebody to take me to the hospital. And I said, well, I think you need to go to, you know, an ambulance to come and pick you up. And she said, okay. So I called 911, and they told me to watch how she was breathing and that kind of thing. And I did. And the Life Squad came within about 10 minutes. I had to go out in the courtyard to kind of get them to come, because they couldn't see where I was. And they finally got there. And she kept saying to me, go get my purse. And I said, well, I'm not sure. Where is it? And she said, it's downstairs. And I said, okay. So I go down there. Took me a few minutes to find it because I didn't know exactly where it was. So I did find it. And I came back with it. And the Life Squad said, yeah, we're taking her to the hospital. And I said, okay, well, that's good. I'm glad I was here to do that, you know, to be there. And she couldn't find the keys to the front door. So, but fortunately they had another lock on there that I could lock it from the inside and then close the door. So, and they took her on. So, and then I saw her daughter later on during the day, and she said, yeah, she wasn't doing very well. She said, I was glad that you were here because I was at work and I couldn't have gotten here. And apparently her phone was not available. She couldn't find her phone. So, so she said, but I think she's going to be okay. So that was on Wednesday. And then Thursday, she came home. And I thought, oh, okay. And I said, are you doing better? And she said, yeah. And I said, well, I am so happy that I took that moment and actually came over, because I almost didn't do it. And I was so glad that I did. So that was my special day, my holy moments.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
Yes,
something.
applauding you for taking that moment. Yeah,
I
that
was
you're getting a
terrified, but
nudge
yeah, I
there,
was
that was-
terrified. Yeah. I
Yeah.
didn't know what I was going to do, but I managed to do what I needed to do and what she needed. So I was glad of that.
That is very awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure, no problem.
See, wow, what holy moments can do. Just taking
Yeah.
but being open and taking the nudge.
Mhm.
Anyone else want to share a holy moment that you created or experienced? Not a busy week. Oh yeah, go ahead, Beth.
So this actually happened last week in the office. I was into the office, I mean, the building office proper, and had a meeting there, and was then in my own specific office for a few minutes, and had been telling myself, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to be here for just a few minutes, and then I'm going to go on home and finish up in my home office. Except that one thing led to another, and I kept staying there, right? And I almost got aggravated, and I'm like, well, at this point, now it's too late in the day. So I'm just gonna stay here and finish out my day in the office. So I'm sitting there in the office late, and there's one other person, and it's my friend who is on the other side of my beige upholstery cubicle wall. And she asked, and she said, Beth, are you still there, and do you have a minute? And I said, sure, I'm here, I have a minute, please come over. She came over and she was telling me she's from Colombia. And she was saying, I just wanted to come and say goodbye to you. She said, my father is ill. He's in Colombia. At this point, we don't have the help that we need to care for him. She had been coordinating his care from Cincinnati, which, bless her heart, I mean, I just can't even imagine trying to do that. And finally had determined that she and her husband and her young boy were all going to leave. They were going to sell everything. They're leaving. She's leaving her job, and they're going to Colombia all in to go and take care of her father. In the midst of that, she disclosed that it was very important to her to go as quickly as possible because she wanted to make sure that she still had time to be with her father when he would remember her, which was giving more information about his personal health experience and about the level of support and coordination she had been doing by phone and what all was going to be, necessary. And I was able to just spend a little bit of time with her and share my own personal journey. My mother actually just passed with Alzheimer's. And so with me just, and she did not know that. She just had been saying goodbye. So we had this very special time, for me to be able to just share with her and bless her for just knowing what was hers to do. And to say yes and know that with a calling so strong, all the support and the angels would be there to guide her. And it was an incredibly holy moment for sure.
Thank you for sharing. It sounds very, like it was very touching.
Mhm.
I have a holy moment that has grown kind of by leaps and bounds. So it started with a holy moment that led to a lot of other ones. Lindsay is in one of my groups, and I noticed that she was always so positive and informative when we needed some information, but mostly how positive she was. And out of that, starting with that, is that she, you know what, I don't have you all on speaker, and I mean on gallery. Just a second. Okay. So starting with that positive impression she gave, the next holy moment was that she expressed such appreciation for who I was, not non-judgmental, seeing the best. And so that was another one. And with each of these, I learned something. And then the next one was when some of us were disparaged about the state of the world, she put in some of these thoughts that are in the book in terms of concentrating on what we can do rather than being very negative about the situation that exists. And from that, another thing came is that she invited me to some of the groups, this is being one of them, and having participated in the last meeting, made me remember that I was part of a unity group and I stopped going to church because I didn't have any transportation there. And I thought, oh no. And then the next thing was I got a subscription to the Our Daily Word. So that brought me back, to my old memories of, good things that happened to me while I was at Unity Church. And then so now comes this book, again through her sharing another holy moment with me, and informing me about it. And then I came, and from all this, the biggest result I think is that I'm going to pursue going to Unity, even though I don't have a ride, calling up the nearest Unity church. They haven't called me back, but it occurred to me, maybe there's someone that's coming from our town just over the border. So out of this first little thing of demonstrating kind of who she is and what she does, just step by step, I've been led to a new state of mind. And the greatest one of all is that I have had some associations that were not positive, and I have cut off one of those. And I said to myself, oh, good, now I have lots of time and I can do a discussion like this, or I can go to these other opportunities. So my feeling of loneliness has been just turned around. And it just, as the book says, it just starts by being and acting. So I was the recipient of many holy moments, and I'm appreciative of that.
Thank you for sharing that, Irene. And yes, it sounds like you have a lot of examples from the book right in your story there. Exactly. Your story shows that the loneliness, he even talks about that, how that can dissipate when we are experiencing holy moments. And so to continue them in our lives, to keep it going. So thank you so much for sharing. So part 3 is, I don't want to, so was there anyone else before we move on? I forgot to ask one more time. I think she was the last one. If there's anyone else that wants to share a holy moment. Okay, it's part 3 seems kind of longer compared to some of the other sections. I was saying that before everybody got on. So we're going to see what we can do with this. Starting on page 61 is where part 3 starts. And it's the section, What Gives You Hope? And the first time I read the book, this little section just on hope was really a pretty big deal for me. And sometimes I think hope can be kind of like love, where it's one of those things we talk about and we think we know what it means until we start really studying what it is. And I came to a new appreciation after this section. So I hope that we can delve just a little bit into the first story here. I'll give a little intro and then we'll read the back end of it from Les Miserables. I'm not sure how many people have actually seen it or read it, or it's a great, yes, it's so great. In the story, he talks about the main character, Jean Valjean, and how he was released from prison for something that seems so crazy, that he got 19 years for stealing a loaf of bread. How anyone gets 19 years in prison for stealing a loaf of bread seems just beyond my comprehension. And he seems to have the right to be pretty bitter about that, if you ask me. And he comes out of prison and he gets hosted by an elderly bishop who he was just looking for dinner for that night, but the bishop brings him in and says, here, I'm going to give you a place to stay. And he kind of gets paid back by in the morning. When Valjean leaves, he takes all of the bishop's silverware with him. And I don't know if you know anyone like this, or I've known people in situations like this that were very hopeless and didn't know how they were going to do anything, and has done something similar. And so what happens is the police capture him, and the bishop, instead of saying, oh yeah, he stole my silverware, he kind of lets him off the hook and tells the police, oh no, that was a gift. That was a gift, for him, so he could use that silver. And that was something different for Valjean. He didn't expect that to happen. So if somebody could start reading there at the bottom of 62, it's the third full paragraph there, this encounter. And if you could read, someone who likes to read could read over to the bottom of the next page, at the end of the last paragraph there. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs. Somebody want to take that section and read it? Starting at 62, this encounter with the bishop. Lynn, you want to go ahead and do this one? You unmute for us.
Well, I guess it'd be best if I unmute.
Yeah, thanks.
So you want me to start where Jean Valjean host? Jean,
This encounter, the one right underneath there.
got it. This encounter with the bishop was the first time in decades Valjean had been treated with love, respect, and compassion. It forever changed him. It was a moment of tender care. The bishop did not see Valjean as a thief, and he did not see him as a bishop. He saw only two brothers. In that moment, nothing else mattered to him except what was best for Jean Valjean. It was indeed a holy moment. This moment of brotherly love set off a domino effect of goodness. In a result of the bishop's goodness, the effect of that one holy moment, Valjean unleashes an astonishing wave of holy moments everywhere he goes for the rest of his life. These holy moments touch thousands of lives and transform a whole town. Valjean was hopeless, devastated by hatred and injustice. Having suffered so much throughout his life, he had lost faith in himself, in others, in God, and in society. One man restored his hope in one moment, and Jean Valjean was able to change and go on to become a universal symbol of redemption and hope. Like in Les Miserables, there is so much hopelessness in the world today. Like Jean Valjean, many people today have lost hope, discouraged and confused. Too many people are miserable.
Thanks, Lynn. What are some of your takeaways from this section in the framework of the holy moment? Anyone? Lynn?
To me, and I saw this on PBS. It's a beautiful story, but just the transformation that came to him was astonishing. And he talks about how his life had been so bad before and how this totally transformed him. And he became happy. So that's all part of this. When you give like that, it just opens you up. And it's just a beautiful thing. And I understand it because it's happened to me, not to the extent of Jean Valjean, but I understand how you open yourself up when you see those holy moments happening in your life and in other people's lives.
Mhm.
So
Thanks,
that's my 2 cents worth.
Anyone else have any takeaways from this section? So my big thing was going from the bottom of 62 up to 63 when he says that the bishop did not see Valjean as a thief and he did not see him as a bishop, himself as a bishop. He saw only two brothers, and that moment nothing else mattered to him except what was best for Jean Valjean. What I see there is oneness. Isn't that the unity idea? That we see ourselves connected to everyone else. And he didn't even see his own role as a bishop. He wasn't trying to do the right thing as a bishop. And he wasn't seeing this man as a thief or anything that he would consider immoral. He did this because he saw the connection and the oneness between them, how they're really one. And to me, what I took this as was, well, he's saying, well, what if he put himself in Valjean's shoes and thought, well, what if this was me? Because it is me, right? That other person is me, and oneness, that is me. What would I want someone to do for me in that situation? And I thought to myself, well, yeah, this isn't a new concept. However, it struck me and I thought, what if I could live my life like this? And I'd like to think that I do, and I know that I don't always. So what if I could do this more often?
Mm.
And how could this change your life? Where are you still doing this somewhere, seeing yourself as separate, judging someone? Where could this transformation take place just by seeing yourself as one with this person and asking myself, well, that's me over there. And now I'm seeing myself from my outside. What would I want someone to do for me? What could I do for me over there? Because I'm one with this person.
Mm.
So, Kim?
Isn't that one of the things of what we talk about too, that when you talk about oneness and the person in front of you is someone that you're having some kind of challenge with, that you're frustrated with, it's really your reflection. They're giving you your own reflection back. When you see a conflict, it's kind of like that. If you've spotted, you got it, the thing that Kathy says a lot. It just, that's kind of what I read in here, is that's why it was a holy moment, is because he got to see himself in someone else.
Mm.
Yeah, thanks. So it's like, well, see yourself, where have I struggled? And yeah,
Mhm.
anyone else? Okay, so what gives you hope? That's the question. What gives you hope? What gives you hope?
Hmm.
Kim?
My daughter's on here and my sister-in-law, and I would say the number one thing that gives me hope when I look at them are my grandchildren. They aren't jaded. They're just open. And I see the way that those age groups connect, without a lot of conflict. I mean, yeah, everybody's got issues, but I think you look at kids, and for me, I see younger kids and I see hope.
Mm.
Thank you. Anyone else? What gives you hope? Beth, thank you.
Small baby steps of change, nuances, little tiny glances and things. I'm thinking about a particular single parent of a family that I'm working with, and she has, bless her heart, experienced systems to not be kind to her and try to understand her experiences in life. Therefore, she's very suspicious and very much keeps up her wall, et cetera, and does not make eye contact and keeps her head down. She used to come and she used to come to and we used to visit together with her sunglasses on. And so all of that was where we started years ago. And, you know, it has taken years, little bits at little bits, and seeing things from her side and watching the systems, unfortunately, prove her right sometimes. But being there to walk alongside her. And then to join together to try again and do it another way. So for me, hope is not served on a platter. Hope is like, I think hope is the smaller portion of the feast. Hope is the nuances and the baby steps and the beginnings of the vision and the creation of the big, you know, the big feast or the manifestation that is to come.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? What gives you hope? Kathleen?
I guess this sounds kind of simple, but when I read the daily word and I use affirmations, it really can change my mind and, you know, just my whole temperament from feeling down and just seeing the possibilities that if I just make that switch in my mind, I have a different day. So it gives me hope.
Thank you. Anyone else? I think it's an important question. He talks about how he asks all of his groups this and how over the years, especially recently, it's taking people longer and longer to answer the question. And hope is a really important thing for us, I think, as a human race, just as humanity. And so I think it's a good thing to really think about. So did I miss anyone? Is there somebody else that wanted to speak? George, yeah.
I think there's a saying that says that we're part of God. And for me, it's that daily exercise, that daily routine of getting into that space, recognizing that connection. And from that space, there is hope. There is just a different energy, a different outlook. And for me, it's a case of, in some cases, just putting out a statement that I have no clue as to whether it will manifest. But I do it with the understanding that somewhere along the line, it will make a difference. You can go up or you can go down. I like going up.
Thank you, George. Was there someone else? He says in the book on the next page on 64 and what's the second full paragraph, the third paragraph down, when he says, what is hope? It is the belief that good things lay ahead. It is a combination of desire and expectation. It's the confidence that something wonderful is possible. So what do you think about the idea that hope is the combination of desire and expectation? George,
What page are you on?
on 64. So I flipped the page from the last one we read to the bottom of
Yeah,
63.
I see it.
The third paragraph there.
Yeah, I got it.
Does that make sense? That hope is the combination of desire and expectation?
Mhm.
And the confidence that something wonderful is possible. And maybe that something wonderful isn't anything about what we desire or what we expect, but it's something unexpected, like we talked about last week. A lot of times the holy moment is the unexpected thing.
Mhm.
And that desire and expectation gives us a general direction.
Mhm.
And to be aware of the holy moment means if we spend too much time in desire and expectation exactly, we have too much focus on that, we might
Mhm.
miss the actual holy moment. So hope gives us a direction. But in general, the holy moment allows us to see beyond that, to widen it, to make it even greater, because we are also keeping our minds, our hearts, our spiritual antenna open to what's beyond that, that God has for us, that we might not have seen otherwise unless we're open and allowing. Does that make sense?
Yes. Mhm.
And then the next paragraph, when we enter into hopelessness, even our ability to desire good things diminishes, and all of our expectations turn negative. And so, and I've experienced this before where I expected only bad things to happen, and I couldn't even think about any good things, and I didn't enjoy anything anymore. And that is hopelessness. So when we are hopeful, we believe the future can get better, and he believes that holy moments is a part of this. So how can being more focused on holy moments help us in general as humans, as a humanity? How can holy moments help us have more hope? There are so many hopeless people out there.
Mhm.
How do you think?
And
Yes, Leslie.
I underlined all of that, though, both those paragraphs, because they really touched me. Um, and I think we all have those days where we feel down and we don't think, well, just what's going on in the world right now, that will bring us down as well. And I try not to do that, but sometimes you're just drawn to it. It's there, and you listen to it or you look at it. But lately, I want to say in the last 2 or 3 years, I have been really trying very hard to think of things in a more positive way. I had an experience a few years ago, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago, and I was in a grocery store. Now, some of you may have heard this story, but I was in the grocery store, and I'm not feeling all that great. I'm a little despondent, over some things that are going on in my life. And this woman comes up to me and she says, I just want to say hello to you. She said, I can just feel all this energy coming from you. And it's beautiful energy that's coming from you. I can see the light in you. And I said, I just kind of stood there and said, I don't know what to say. And I said, well, I appreciate that. I really do appreciate it. I said, because I was feeling a little down lately. And she said, well, it's there within you. You just have to keep watching for it. So ever since that time, I try to do that whenever something comes up that keeps coming back in my mind over and over again. I'm telling you, it happens. But then I try to remember that moment, that she told me about that. And that has really helped me probably more than anything else I've done. So I definitely underlined those two paragraphs.
Thank you, Leslie. And then how
Mhm.
easy that would be to give that kind of holy moment to someone else.
That's a
And
good
we can
point.
only
And
see it. I mean, she was open to it, right? That woman
right,
that came up to you, Leslie, she was open to your energy. But how many of
right.
us go through the shopping experience totally focused on the checklist and totally focused on how quickly we can get through or if they're going to have what we need. And then when we're through everything, on to the next task, if we're not opening up to notice these things. We can't give that kind of holy moment out, right? So
Right.
that's part of going back to the definition of being open to God and being allowing. And just one moment, it only takes one moment of that shopping trip, and we can give a smile or a hello to someone. And look at what it's done to Leslie. Yes, it's not the first time I've heard this story, so I know that it's big for you. It's a transformational moment for you. And any one of us can give this kind of holy moment as a gift of hope to any other person that we encounter.
Right.
And I mean, look at what it can do. So thank you for that example.
Sure.
Yeah. Anyone else about how holy moments can bring more hope?
It's Jenny.
Hi.
I do feel like, when we can we can help other people, that can help us, because it feels good to help other people. When you can help someone, right? You see someone needs help, or you can, give some extra time to help someone. I think that gets you off of feeling hopeless, right? And out of your stuff and into someone else's. And then I wanted to say too, like when I do feel hopeless and I call on God, it's like the synchronicities that come to me to encourage me are unbelievable, right? There'll be, a butterfly, or there'll be that right divination card, or there'll be a YouTube that has just the right message for me. You know what I mean? And it feels like that's how I get hope, right? And then I can take what I'm getting for, many times I'll pass on those YouTubes that, I think other people might enjoy to maybe help boost their spirits.
Thank you, Jenny. That's wonderful. I agree that
Yeah,
putting those things out, we get that energy back to us. Definitely. Kathy, yeah. And then,
So, oh,
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Kathy first and then Beth.
okay. Okay. Sometimes I think we forget in this crazy world with everyone acting maybe not so wonderful, myself included, is that there's good in everyone. And if we can look to find what it is that's good, and I think that adds to hope. I think that continues to remind you that there is good in this world and good in the people around it. We're all created in God's image. So we all have good in us, and we just need to discover it and focus on it. And rather than always focusing on what is negative about that person or what someone did, I think that can contribute to hopefulness.
Thank you. Yes, because it's part of the definition to see that the future can be better. There's possibility in the goodness of people. Yeah, thank you so much, Kathy. Beth?
So, Irene, if it's okay, I'd like to just reflect back on your whole series of events that you were talking about with your holy moment, like chain that occurred.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking about it and thinking about, it's most likely that Lindsay did not set out with the goal nor the vision of, seeing you making the decision to turn, to decide to come to unity or to a unity of any sort. She started with just this sweetness, kindness, visiting with you, affirming you for who you are, sharing with you. And that was that on that one day. That's all she did. And it happened again. And then, but some part of that sequence was not her quote unquote job or her vision. It was just hers to do in the moment. And that, I love the fact that all I have is just a moment. And that's great. Because you can set little sequences rolling all over the place and you just get to watch them roll or not. But you just know you've blessed your spot and on they go.
Thanks, Beth.
Mhm.
It's true, yeah. So all
It
these
is.
things, they give hope, and I think that it really leads into the next section about the world as a mess, and not reiterating all of the stories we could lay upon the world about what is right, what is wrong about the world, and where it's gone. I'm sure we could all get into the complaining mode about things that aren't going the way we would prefer them to go, and in the direction we prefer them to go. And so this sense of hope is the underlying possibility of what our world can become when we're led by that, when we're led by spirit, when we're led by that hope that's inside us. So on 66, under the world is a mess, can somebody read? It's the fourth, it starts at the bottom, the fourth full paragraph. So instead of like talking about all of that, we're just going to go. The sad thing is every holy moment makes us less. Every unholy moment. Can someone start there and read this to the end of that section? Thanks, Bobby. Starting on 66 at the bottom, the sad thing.
The sad thing is every unholy moment makes us less of who we were created to be, and every unholy moment makes the world a little more of a mess. When we abandon our destiny, we harm ourselves and others, make happiness impossible, and leave behind a trail of collateral damage. We cause most of the world's problems. It's a blunt truth, but a truth nevertheless. We are the creators of much of our own misery and the cause of much of other people's unhappiness. The world is a bit of a mess. There's no denying it, but we can do something about it. And if there is one thing that Holy Moments announces boldly, it is this: you can do something about it. That's right, you can do something about it. Don't underestimate yourself. God doesn't. Holy Moments are the solution to the world's problems. This great collaboration between God and humanity is the untested solution to our problems. Unholy moments got us into this mess, and only holy moments will get us out of it.
Thanks. So I just wanted to see if you agree that the holy moments can be a solution to the world's problems.
Mhm.
And what takeaways that you have from this section. So instead of focusing a lot on the mess, let's focus on the solution. How can holy moments help us? Anybody have ideas here? Bobby, go ahead.
I'll make this into a holy moment, but this is something I was thinking of today. I heard a politician start out with, the people want people who will fight. So no matter what they were saying, I don't want politicians who will fight. You know, no matter what it was, fight for peace and less hunger challenges, you know, all those kind of things. But the politician who said it uses the word fight. And if that and other leaders would think of creating holy moments more often, they wouldn't have to think that what we really want is people who will fight. And so I was reminded of a poster that I had in high school that said, suppose they gave a war and nobody came.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So if everybody thought more holy moments, and yes, it's possible. It's possible. So I do believe holy moments are the solution to the world's problems.
Mhm.
Thank you.
What came to mind when you said that, I thought of several people. the author talks at the beginning about decisions. And it came with a decision. Schindler, Wahlberg, and there was a movie about another man who decided that they were going to help the Jews. And with that decision, it became more and more. Like in Schindler's case, he didn't expect it to grow like it had, but it was a holy moment when they made that decision that they needed to make a difference.
Mhm.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, all the decisions. I mean, can you think about how you can change the world if you just go back to the definition? If you set just one moment that you set aside your preference and self-interest, and for just that one moment, do what you prayerfully believe God is calling you to do. If everyone can do what they prayerfully believe God is calling them to do, how could that change our world? It's almost abstract. It's almost too hard to think about.
Mhm.
And would it take even the politicians doing it if we just all did it?
Mhm.
Right. I want to say that I know in my life, when I have collaborated with God about how to do something, even when I thought that I didn't necessarily think that that was what I wanted to do or how I wanted to go about it. It always turned out 100% better when I do it God's way versus when I do it my way. And, I'm sorry to say that even with that encouragement and knowledge, I don't always choose to go to God first and do it my way, his way. I want to do it my way most of the time. And so I think if we all had an attitude adjustment of, well, I have an issue, let me go to God and find out how he wants me to handle it and trust him with the way he wants to handle it. I can tell you 100% of the time, it is always better. It may be unexpected. It may be different. It may be not what I saw coming down the road, but it's always better in my
Thank you
life.
so much for that, Kathy. That's
Mhm.
wonderful. And thank you for the vulnerability and admitting what we all experience, that we all experience how good that can be and how often we don't choose it for whatever reason. And the idea is that if we get into a practice like Holy Moments, what we're trying to do is give an active force to allowing this to happen more often in our lives, because it's not just going to happen on its own. We have to be at first very intentional about the choice of the holy moment. And so even little things like giving small gifts and saying hello and choosing the small things just to open up to what we're being called to do more often could lead to a life lived this way. A life where we're constantly open to guidance. Instead of being open to guidance 1% of the time, it's 3% of the time. Or instead of 3, it's 10%. Instead of 10%, it's 15%. Can you imagine being open and living your life guided completely from source at least 50% of the time? Can you imagine how much that could change your life? But the thing is what we're learning here is it's not just your life you're changing. It's everybody's life around you that you're changing, because God has no choice but to work through us. Because we are one with God, God's force, that the energy works through us. And it's always there wanting us. So that is what we're trying to do, is open up to where can we do even the smallest thing? And because the smallest thing will lead to bigger things. And that's how we change the world, those little small things. Did someone have something else to add to that? So in the next section, he kind of goes one step farther, and he's talking about the idea of progress and how it's possible that we're changing, but maybe that change and progress aren't the same thing. And I don't think this is the first time that we've heard that before, that, it's always changing, but we call progress, sometimes what we call progress is just change. And so he's talking about, and I'm skipping over to 68, where he says, one thing is clear, what we are doing isn't working, and we need a new approach. So he's talking about if this delusion of progress is not working. And he talks about we should look a little bit more about what progress really is. And he talks several times about the idea of human flourishing. So the goal of progress is for humans to flourish. And he says it over and over again. So what do we need, in your opinion, kind of what needs to happen for humans to flourish? What actually brings about human flourishing? And maybe not necessarily take this from a position of technological progress or advancements on a material level, but think about what kinds of changes we need to make humans flourish.
I would say spiritual connection.
I love that.
I think the more we all do our inner work instead of projecting, and like when we get triggered, like taking that pause and figuring out what you have to see and doing your work instead of lashing out at people or projecting. I think the more we can all manage, feel our emotions, right? And try to heal whatever that is and stop blaming other people. I think that you stop judging, start having more compassion for people. I think that would go a long way.
Thank you, Jenny. What else? What brings about human flourishing? What do you need? So he does talk about there, well, we need to think about what the human, as a humanity, as a human race needs to flourish. We need to also think about what makes us individually flourish. So what puts you in an environment? What do you do in your life, or where can you put yourself where you flourish? Anything else that hasn't been said? What do you think?
I would say compassion for the self. The
I
more
love it. Can you say
compassion
a
we
little
have
bit more
for
about that,
ourselves,
please? Like how that works for you?
I would say that the more compassion we have for ourselves, the more we can offer to others.
Oh,
Like if we make a mistake, don't judge so much to say, oh, okay, I made a mistake. It's okay. Let me try again. And yeah, because I think a lot of times we want compassion from other people, but can we have compassion for ourselves first?
That's a good one.
thank you. Anyone else? Thank you for that. What helps you flourish? Go ahead, Kathy.
Okay, I'm just speaking way too much, but
No,
I
you're
tend
not.
to do that, as my sister-in-law and niece might know. But when I'm in, I feel connected in a community, and I know that I'm loved and supported. That's the kind of environment that allows me to flourish and use my gifts and talents and be the best that I can be. So I think connection, social connection amongst each other in a positive manner, is a great way to bring more hope and compassion into society.
Thank you. Yes, I would agree. That was one of the first things on my list was support, to feel supported and accepted by a community. Bobby?
This kind of goes along with self-compassion, but it's negative self-talk and just negative thoughts and negative concepts that we don't catch. Catch them and move them on. Just move them on out, because we can get, just as we can get caught in an upward spiral where our vibration is high and we feel so good and then we feel better, but it's very easy to get in that downward spiral that comes from negative thoughts that we don't curb. There's a time to have your negative thoughts, feel them deeply and let them go. But if we get caught up in them, they bring us down, they bring down people all around us. And yeah, I find keeping my vibration high helps other people, such as what Leslie experienced. She must have been radiating that day for a stranger, which I know she radiates about every day. And almost every stranger wants to say that to her. But it was so compelling that people told her, you just radiant. And one way to be radiant is to curb your negative thinking, negative thoughts, and negative thoughts about self. That's where it starts.
Thank you. That's great. Anyone else? All right. So I am picking up on the next part. So he talks about, in the last part of this section, he starts talking about a couple words that struck a chord with me first, and I had to go back and read. He starts talking about morality and virtues. And I had to actually go look those words up in the dictionary just to make sure that I knew them. And it just so happened that the first time I read this book, I was reading in parallel. A teacher friend had given me a book on why teachers are quitting the education profession. And it's all about morality. And when I think of the word like morals and morality, I think of this kind of societal, what society imposes on me, like a set of morals or virtues that some religious dogma would say this is right and this is wrong, or society says this is right and this is wrong. And that they were using it saying, well, teachers are leaving the workplace because of morality reasons. And I'm like, what are they talking about? And then I realized, oh wait, there's this whole other definition to the idea of morality. And it means that a moral is a personal standard for a belief or behavior concerning what is acceptable for me to do. And it's out of my own calling. And so a lot of teachers are being led away from what they were called to do in the classroom, which is lead human beings and take care of human beings and make and support future adult human beings to help children to thrive. And they're doing other things. And I thought like morality and being virtuous meant like, the 7 virtues or the 12 biblical virtues. And a virtue is really just showing your own personal moral standard. And when I went back to read it, and he says on 72, so I'll give you time to catch up there. And on page 72, he starts talking about the idea of morality. And I thought, ooh, well, wait a second. Is he going to bring like the Christian moral in on me? And I realized what he's saying really is for human flourishing to happen is that we have to have our own sense of our own moral value, our virtues, following those virtues. We need to stay open to where we're being led, where we're being called, and what are our true values. It's kind of like having a personal mission statement. Where is your integrity lying? So when he says in the middle of 72, the cultural aggression towards morality and dismissal of anything spiritual will be the major obstacle to progress in society from this moment onward. A people confused about the difference between right and wrong, good and bad, just and unjust, will grasp anything that promises progress and find themselves bouncing from one oblivion to another. And so I think he's talking about what we're called to do, what's right for us, not what society is telling us is the right and wrong thing, but being open to what God is telling us is right for us and being open to our own personal integrity. I don't know if anybody else read it that way, but it helped me because for a hot minute I was like, wait a second. I don't like the whole idea of virtue and morality coming up here. Because I don't always agree with the traditional Christian virtue and what they say they think the Bible means. You know, I'm not into that. And I realized that when he's talking about here, is our own personal sense of right or wrong, being open to God, being led, prayerfully led to know what that is. And so on the next page on 73, can someone read that page starting with the first full paragraph? You cannot improve your life in any meaningful way. Thanks, Kim. 73. Yeah.
Gotcha. You cannot improve your life in any meaningful way without improving as a human being. And what is true for one person is true for an entire society. Virtue is the only way for a society to make genuine progress. Keep going.
Yeah, if you could go to the bottom of the page, that would be great.
Virtues are the building blocks of character. Character is destiny, the Greek philosopher Heraclitus observed. This is true for a person, a marriage, a family, community, nation, and indeed the whole human collective. Character is moral and methical excellence. It is built one virtue upon another, and the progress of the human race depends upon it. We look to science, technology, education, and economic growth as the champions of progress. These each have a role to play, but their success in bringing about human flourishing rests upon the virtue and character of the people driving these initiatives.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So what do you think about the idea of the virtues being the building blocks and that we can't improve our life in any meaningful way without improving as a human being, and that it's all really about our moral and virtues in the light that it's about our own morals and virtues and not societal dogma of any kind? Does this make sense? Does it make sense that this would be in line with the holy moment and that this discussion would be kind of important because we're talking about, are we aligned to our own sense of values? And does it seem like it would be easier to follow holy moments if we are in line with our own sense of values in our life, or if we're not? Kim?
It feels to me like one of the things that they're talking about here is how do you get to that place where there's wholeness, where there is virtue, where there is morality. But for me, the sentence that caught me is that human flourishing rests upon the virtue and character of the people driving these specific initiatives. And for me, I think that's just really an incredible insight, because I do feel like at the end of the day, we are all led one way or the other. I mean, if you're aware of it, great. If you're not, you need to be. But the point being, we each have our own way of looking at things. We're each being shown different things and ways to be and be more peaceful, be more open, be more loving. But at the end of the day, I feel like if we aren't invested somehow heavily in institutions, whether it's marriage, schools, whatever, I feel like that that those of us who think along the lines of being accountable for the way we do things, I think the issue, that's where the conflict for me is. People driving institutions or initiatives aren't necessarily the people that have the integrity behind them. And I think that gets us into trouble.
Right. And so the idea of the holy moment would be the more of us who are living within the integrity of our values more often, that eventually we can create a ripple effect to affect those who are. So since we can only control, we can't control the people that in places or positions of power sometimes that we wish we could control, we can only control ourselves, and we can allow that ripple out, then all that we can really do is look at our own values now and see in what ways can I be in more integrity with my own values.
Right.
In what ways might I be living a value out, but maybe not spreading it and sharing it as much with others. So think about some like a top 3 or a top 5 list. If you got a piece of paper to jot them down, values. If someone just has to put you on a spot and you're allowed to change your mind later, but just ones that come to you, I want you just to jot down 3 to 5 things that you really value most. Those would be your virtues. So it's whether you believe that you can be virtuous in that area or not. What do you really value in your life? Like self-compassion has come up. That would be one. So being compassionate towards self. So like write down 3 to 5 things that you really value, feel called to it. It kind of almost springs off your heart because you just know that it's like within your integrity to act from it.
I think for me, it's growth, definitely growth and connection with spirit and sharing what I learn with others. And of course, love and, sharing is out of love. But that growth for me, it's important. I love to learn. And I always think for me, it is till the day I die, I'm going to be learning. And that's part of being alive is so that we can grow spiritually upwards and outwards. And from that, the connection, of course, connection with God. That's like, the same thing, growth and connection with God, and then sharing with other people what I have learned. And so that will actually be contribution.
Thank you, Elise, for those great examples. I'd like to do like a breakout room and allow you to kind of share some of these ideas and not only just share your values, but share some ideas for living these out more, being in even more integrity with them, and how this can be a part of your holy moments of staying open and allowing. Like, how can you see yourself? What would this do for you? How can you live this out even more? Does the question make sense? So you're going to share the values and you're going to talk about how doing this more often, living this out more, using the holy moment to live these values out more, what it can do for you and others. And I'm going to give you about 5 minutes, if that's okay. And I'll see you back then. Oh, looks like we're making it back. Good to see everybody. Any takeaways from your discussions that you would like to share to the whole group? Not very chatty tonight, are we? I just did somebody want to speak?
I don't know if the other two are on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I just talked about how personally, I started out in a Baptist church. I grew up in a Baptist church, and there was, you were always following some kind of rule. You couldn't do this, you couldn't do that. And then when I found unity, I realized, that that's not what it's about. God is here for us. We're a part of God. And I never learned that when I was young. And so that is something that really is, important to me. And that's what I try to let myself know and think about that kind of thing all the time on a regular basis so that I don't fall backwards, So that was kind of what I was telling them about.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing, Liz.
Sure.
Anything else that came up that you thought was good in your conversation?
I would rather they would speak it themselves. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know what
I was
happened.
just asking anyone in general, anyone else.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
For me, this value piece and my work with Martha Creek has been invaluable to me because I found that it's more than just doing what I want to do. It's doing what I'm led to do. And he uses in the book things like compassion, generosity, love, patience, kindness, gentleness, forgiveness, empathy, friendship. And I know like oneness and connection are part of my values. And always looking for the way to connect in any circumstance, looking to stay connected with the person, no matter what the emotion that I'm having. And I realized that these things, when I really look at my 3 to 5 main values, they're spiritual. They're not just things that I want to do. They're things that God is calling me to do. And when I don't follow them, I feel so badly because that's the guidance that I'm being led to do. And so knowing our values and then being very intentional takes an openness and an allowing of that guidance, which is not too different from a holy moment. Because in order to be able to use it and to expand it, we have to do what the holy moment requires us to do, which is to open yourself to God, make yourself available, set aside personal preferences and interests, and for one moment, prayerfully do what you prayerfully believe God is calling you to do out of your integrity. And so I have found this to be so helpful to me to live in more of a flow by posting my 3 to 5 values. I actually put them, they used to be behind me on this door back here, but I've moved them. But they used to all be back here on this closet door. And I had my treasure mapping and all posted back there at one time. But I post them and I post them on my desk at school also. And that way it helps remind me to stay open for those things. So I'm just looking for ways for us to stay open to the holy moment. And I found this to be kind of the key to the whole next section without having to talk about the spiritual IQ, the EQ, the SQ. And, this kind of staying within our integrity, staying within what we're called to do is really just leading us to our spiritual quotient, our SQ for the old next section there. So I wanted to at least highlight that before we go. And we're already to the end. So since we're at the end of our time and that last section is so short, I thought we would just pick up at the Power of Holy Moments on page 78. Kind of pick up on that and do that last part. Because if you've already read the whole portion on the God's math, that's kind of hard to read through. I mean, you get the idea. There's pages of it, but I think you flip through those pages and you kind of get the idea of what he's talking about there. We can talk about God's math next time and that last section. Does that sound good?
Yes.
All right. So in closing today, I know if you need to go, you can go now. If you got a minute, I would just like someone, if you have an intention for this week for yourself in creating a holy moment, I would like you to try to set it, jot it down, or share it out. So like I personally have an intention to create more holy moments. I have been a part and experienced and watched. I have witnessed, not been a part of holy moments, which was really cool to look as a witness on the outsider this week because I'm just staying open to it. And I feel like I was a little tired this week. And so this coming week, I'm like putting it on my to-do list every day to actually find something for me to physically initiate because I don't feel like I'm doing that enough.
Oh,
I don't know if you have an intention for this week you'd like to share to make that more real for you. I know me saying it out loud means I'm going to be more accountable for it. Is there anyone else that wants to set one? Ray?
Yeah, hi. So I haven't talked much during the session, but it was great talking with Kathleen during the one-on-one. So maybe what I'll do, and maybe not maybe, but this is what I'll do. I will pay more attention to these holy moments and see if they are developing in a pattern for me, because maybe that pattern of holy moments is really some form of guidance. And so I'm going to pay attention to see if there is a pattern. And yeah, that's it.
I love that. Thanks, Ray. Someone else
Mhm.
want to share an intention? Anyone? All right. No? Oh, Lynn, is that you want to share?
I like the word initiate. I am going to initiate holy moments in my life this week. I promise.
Yes. Thank you. Anyone else?
I will try to ask and listen to God before making a decision.
Yes, love it. Thank you.
Mhm.
Anyone else? Antoinette?
Live and come from the knowing that every moment is a holy moment. To be fully present to every holy moment.
I love that. I think I'd put that on a post-it note for me somewhere so I can see it and remember it all day. Yeah. Thank you.
Sandy, before we leave, could you say again what page we're going to start on when we come back?
Well, we left off around 78.
So we're going to continue from 78 till the end, right?
Yeah, because it
Okay.
goes 78 till the last page is what is like 115. And then in there is God's math, which we can talk about the meaning of it, but like kind of skipping through that. So
And then that will be our last meeting?
yes, that'll be our last one.
Okay.
All right.
So for me, it would be heart listening. So listening from the heart instead of having an agenda, my agenda, just listen from the heart.
That's great. Thanks.
That's a good one.
Anything, anybody else want to share? All right. It's time to start going to make holy moment.